When's the murder mystery start?
I've invited you all to my island.
Hi.
Because tonight, a murder will be committed. My murder.
Once you're dead, will we still be able to talk to you?
Yeah, I'm not playing dead the whole weekend, dude.
This is truly the last fall.
Across the island, I've hidden clues. You will have to closely observe each other. If anyone can name the killer, that person wins our game. Any questions? Holy
Okay, welcome to episode 2 of Double Double Feature. I'm Mason.
I'm Matt.
And this is the podcast where we both talk about a movie that just came out recently, and then we each recommend a movie that we would pair it with, and rate the movie, and rate each other's movies.
And argue about which one makes the better double feature.
Yeah, it's a whole big rating thing. Matt.
Today we'll be talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
If you break a glass onion, do you cry?
Depends on where the shards go.
Okay. Ooh, ouch. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, a Netflix original written and directed by Rian Johnson, and a sequel to the 2019 box office success and Academy Award nominee Knives Out. This follows the further adventures of Daniel Craig's detective Benoit Blanc as he gets invited by a tech billionaire who is absolutely not Elon Musk to an island in Greece, along with a whole bunch of his friends. At least that's what we think at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And we get invited to solve the murder mystery of Miles Braun. And that's over fairly quickly.
Unlike last time, this time we should really avoid spoilers because the genre of the movie is mystery.
Yes.
But do we start with Benoit Blanc being kind of depressed in a state of not having a case to solve?
Yes.
He's in his bathtub and he plays like a Words with Friends style thing with... Who are the people he plays with?
He's there with Angela Lansbury, Stephen Sondheim, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Natasha Lyonne, which, to me, that sounds like a fantastic time.
Me too, really. I love Natasha Lyonne. I wish she was just in the movie as a character.
No, but she's just playing herself.
Yes. And we also get the voice of... This movie has 3 mysteries at least, really. And one of the mysteries, and I knew it was going to be a mystery going in, was who is Benoit Blanc's boyfriend? Philip.
Yes.
And we hear his voice off stage. This was, of the 3 major mysteries, the only one that I didn't solve was who was his boyfriend. I'll tell you who I guessed it was, but I won't tell the audience who it really was.
Okay.
My guess was it was going to be Pierce Brosnan or Idris Elba.
Okay. Definitely.
Someone from the Bond universe.
Yeah.
Or would-be Bond.
Yeah, not all that far off, as it turns out.
But it's not somebody from a
But
Bond.
it's not someone from the Bond universe.
It is someone I never considered that it wouldn't be someone British, even though even though he's in New Orleans.
He's in New York, isn't he?
Oh, okay.
At the beginning of the movie.
I thought. Never mind.
I'm pretty sure that was New York.
Okay.
I'm hoping it was. I guess we should start, since we're not doing any spoilers.
We can do
like
some
very,
minor
very
ones.
mild ones. But we have to start, I guess, by talking about how this relates to the first movie.
How does it? Because my memory of the first movie is hazy, and I did not rewatch it.
It does not really relate to the first movie at all.
Okay,
I think
good.
there is one throwaway line about halfway through the movie where Daniel Craig says something along the lines of, I have learned to distrust secret invitations. Something along those lines. Other than that, there's no mention of any of the characters from Knives Out. So no Ana de Armas, no Chris Evans, no Jamie Lee Curtis, no Don Johnson, no Michael Shannon. None of the characters from
Christopher
that movie.
Plummer.
Yeah, no, well, I would be very surprised if Christopher Plummer were in this one.
Yeah.
Spoilers for a 3-year-old movie that you already should have seen. Christopher Plummer actually does die in Knives Out.
And he's dead in real life.
Yeah, and so is Angela Lansbury.
Yes,
and
that's
Stephen
true.
Sondheim now. This is not... Ooh, this got dark all of a sudden.
Yes.
But you have seen the first movie.
Yes, I saw it when it was new.
Okay, so the twist in the original Knives Out, which I feel comfortable spoiling, is that we actually find out what happened to Harlan Thrombey, Christopher Plummer's character, about 30 minutes into the movie, and it becomes not a straightforward murder mystery, but a a Holmes and Watson style thing with Daniel Craig's character being tagged along by Ana de Armas's character, who is his Watson, and who is trying her best to keep him from solving the mystery.
And this one is kind of a different genre. The other one is the house where somebody's murdered and it's filled with suspects. This is a guy throwing a party on an island and inviting his friends to solve a murder mystery, which is a slightly different murder mystery genre, also well traveled.
This is Death on the Nile.
Kind of, or
with
The Last of
murder
Sheila.
mystery. Or The Last of Sheila, which I suspect we'll be getting to later.
Yes.
You don't have very clear memories of the first film,
No.
but how would you compare the two?
Fairly similar in quality. They were both decent, watchable movies. I didn't hate either of them. They're brightly colored. People wear brightly colored clothes. Like, I remember the first Knives Out the standee, I was like, no one but a Hollywood costume designer would ever dress this group of people this way. Mm-hmm. They're all wearing, like, lime green and purple and white and things. And this movie's very similar. Although in this movie, we get a group of people who I think are all kind of, well, not all of them, but some of them are very meant to be grating characters.
Yes.
Including the host.
Yes, although you might not initially, because there are a couple of other personalities that are more obviously and immediately grating.
Yes, namely Kate Hudson.
Oh my gosh.
As like a rich, free-spirited girl.
Where has she played that role before?
I don't
The
know.
free spirit, anyway.
Yeah, and Dave Bautista.
Playing his new superhero character, Maga Man.
He's, an internet vlogger.
Yeah, kind of in the men's rights, unauthorized medical supplements section of the internet.
And we meet them, and they each have a side person who is also invited to join in. And we'll get to the invitations in a second. Kate Hudson's joined by Jessica Fenwick, who I recognize from The Gray Man.
Jessica Henwick.
Henwick.
Yes.
Yeah, as Peg, who is her assistant and kind of minder who tries to keep her out of trouble. And Kate Hudson's in trouble for saying bad things on Twitter and such, which we get to hear some of. And there's some amusement to be had in how bad they are and danced around.
Oh, they are really bad.
Dave Bautista is joined by his girlfriend Whiskey. But we also meet his mother, who is played by Jackie Hoffman, who I recognized from a very funny small role in the John Waters movie, A Dirty Shame.
And she's only in the movie for one scene, and she really steals her scene.
Yeah, I
wonderful.
kind of wish she was in more of the movie.
Yeah.
But we also meet a scientist who is played by...
Lionel Odom Jr.
Is he from Hamilton?
He is. He was Aaron Burr in Hamilton, and I think he was also in One Night in Miami, if I remember correctly.
Oh, how is that? That's a movie I was curious about but did not see.
One Night in Miami kind of left me cold. I will say that I did like him as Sam Cooke. The idea of the premise, what if you got Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, these great luminaries, all in one hotel room in Miami on the night that Muhammad Ali becomes heavyweight champion of the world.
And they all were in Miami.
Yes. And
as we saw in the best part of the movie, Ali,
Yes.
is that first 20 minutes of Ali through the Sonny Liston fight is cinema gold. It's like shoot it into my veins, cinema gold. And then the movie kind of lurches and gets a little tiresome. It's an interesting movie. I kind of like Ali. It's a movie that rewards rewatch more than a first watch.
And well, One Night in Miami is, again, the premise is what if you got these three, really important people together all in one hotel room in one night? And the answer is they kind of sit around and talk about the burdens of being a black man in America for an hour and a half, and that's the movie.
There's a popular genre of play like in, I want to say, the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Get these famous people together. I know that Steve Martin wrote a famous one. There's one about Marilyn Monroe and some people in a hotel that Nick Rogue made a movie of with Teresa Russell as Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. Michael Jackson was friends with Liz Taylor and Marlon Brando, and I think they did a thing with all of them together.
Yeah. I didn't hate the message of One Night in Miami. I'm just not a fan of the movie. It was fine. It was well shot. It was well acted. But it was really trapped. It would have functioned better as a stage play, I think.
Was it a stage play?
I think it was, actually.
Okay.
Hey, so let's talk about the cast of the movie we're actually here to talk about.
Oh, and Catherine Hahn as well is a
Yep.
gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah, she's, I think she's pretty clearly a Democratic governor from Connecticut who's running for Senate.
And they're all sent these mystery boxes. They have to solve a series of mysteries which they engage each other via video chat to solve together of what these mysteries are to make the box open to tell them what's up. And they know it's from Miles Braun, their rich friend, who is, they all think, brilliant. How did you feel about this mystery box they're all sent and have to solve?
I thought it was really cheesy, but in a good way.
I felt it would have been a lot more fun if it wasn't clearly CG.
Mm-hmm. There's no way you could make a box that does what these do, though. That would be ridiculous.
Movie magic. A lot of the CG in this movie, which it has a lot, I feel like we're treated to a lot of CG sets and things, and that really left me cold in the movie.
Yep.
Gave the movie kind of a cheap, disposable quality for a very brightly lit movie, very sunshiny movie. I don't know. I would have enjoyed a little more tactile fun throughout. And maybe some things are sets and I'm just too dumb to realize and think they were CG.
I don't know. But we definitely have 4 very different people. You have a politician, you have a scientist, you have a fashion model / like celebrity designer, and you have a YouTuber, a Twitcher, basically, who all come together on this island to meet with their friend and host, only to find, as they're on the dock.
But before this, we also see another person was sent a box that's Janelle Monáe, and instead of solving her box, she just beats it with a hammer. Spoiler.
Yeah.
And I told this out of order. Daniel Craig in the bath, you hear his boyfriend off stage, Philip, from outside the door saying a box has arrived for him. And so Daniel Craig actually arrives before Janelle Monáe at the pier to take off for the island, where everybody is met by Ethan Hawke for one scene.
Oh, I love that he's. I think I read Bryan Johnson got paid $500 million by Netflix to make these to make the 2 Knives Out sequels. So if you've got $250 million to make your film, I guess one of the things you can do is hire Ethan Hawke to come in for one scene.
Ethan Hawke occupies an interesting place in films in that he seems to do the kind of movies that Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken and continually even now Willem Dafoe used to do, where these like low budget to mid-budget, somewhat indie, interesting adult films that I really like to see. Ethan Hawke has never really been one of my favorite actors, but at the same time I kind of have come to really respect him because he does the kind of movies that I want to see, and I wish other actors did what Ethan Hawke does. But then he pops up for like small roles and strange turns and things like this, and Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. He was in Moon Knight too.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
He was the villain in Moon Knight.
Ah.
And that's...
Was he being weird?
No, he was being very zen. Very zen. But that, approaching it from the completely opposite perspective, you have possibly the world's worst Marvel team up in this movie, where the Incredible Hulk, but not the good one, invites Agatha Harkness from WandaVision.
So not Eric Bana?
Yes, that's right. Not Eric Bana. Invites Agatha Harkness from WandaVision, Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, and Colleen Wing from Iron Fist. All to his island. And
when
Janelle
Monáe shows up last,
Yeah.
everybody's surprised to see her.
Yes.
People are also somewhat surprised to see Benoit Blanc. What's Janelle Monáe's character named?
Janelle Monáe is playing a character called Andy Brand.
That's
Cassandra. Cassandra Brand.
Who goes by Andy.
Who just goes by Andy. Although I really love her full name because, and I can't believe this was an accident, this kind of plays into... This is a mild spoiler for something that becomes apparent within the first half hour or so of the movie. So I don't think it's a big deal, but Cassandra is the prophetess from Greek mythology who was cursed to always tell the truth but never be believed. And what is she telling the truth about? The brand.
And so people are kind of surprised that she's shown up, and we can spoil this because she and Miles Braun, the billionaire, had a falling out. They were in this company together. Some people say she was really the prime mover behind the company. Then they had a major falling out, and she hasn't come to a lot of their previous parties they've had together over the years, but she used to be part of this group of friends.
Yeah, and she effectively locked herself out of the group of friends after she got locked out of the company that she co-founded with Miles. How did you find these characters meshing with each other?
You know, a lot of this, it was fine. This whole movie I just found watchable, and this was watchable. I didn't really like anyone. The first thing I really liked in the movie, and who steals the movie to me, other than I guess I liked the mom of Drax, and who, by the way, Dave Bautista, has there ever been a better pro wrestler actor?
No, definitely not. And I'm including Dwayne Johnson in that.
Oh, yeah.
Who's really more of a movie star. Dave Bautista's he always gives these really interesting low-key performances.
The Rock over the years has gotten better.
He has.
He used to remind me of someone in a high school pep assembly.
Yeah, but
the
he's
football
definitely
player
more
dressed as a cheerleader.
Yeah, but he's definitely more of a movie star. He's there for the charisma factor.
When they get to the island, I think after this, the great Edward Norton steals the whole movie for me. He made the movie.
For me, he did. He was definitely co-stealing it. The other one, much to my surprise, was Janelle Monáe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought she was good until at some point she starts doing a southern accent in the movie, and I thought this was painful.
She's more convincing at certain points in the movie than at others.
Yeah.
I grant you that. But I did love her performance overall.
So we go to the island. The island is where we encounter the glass onion, which looks like a big CG glass onion. And it's Edward Norton's, I guess, Bond villain lair, more or less.
Yeah, he's bought this Greek island which already had some architecture on it, some of which he's incorporated into this ultra-modern construction, which looks like a modernist version of a Greek temple at parts, except for this gigantic glass onion on the roof, which is basically his office space.
And he also has this Banksy sculpture outside that, boy, that was annoying. And then when the guy was like, what is this, or something, and the guy says, piece of shite, and then it takes them forever to realize that it's a piece of shit. And I was like, I pretty much heard that immediately when he said it. And so what we find out is, it turns out that Edward Norton tells Daniel Craig that he didn't actually invite him.
Yes.
So our first mystery, who invited Daniel Craig, which we don't find out for a while, and I won't tell you who invited him, but I will say I immediately guessed who invited him. And we also have the second mystery of the movie, which is the game, that Edward Norton has invited them all there for a murder mystery in which he'll be murdered and they have to solve who the murderer is.
Yes.
They all seem to have a good motive, and Daniel Craig immediately sets to work trying to solve this.
And I don't think this constitutes much of a spoiler. It takes him about 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think that kind of is a spoiler, but that was a really good part of the movie.
It was a great joke.
Yeah, it was. It's that he just ruins this whole thing. But it turns out they all know each other from years in the past. They met, was it in London or something? They all met at a bar somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was New York. They were in some little dive bar in New York called the Glass Onion, hence the name of the movie.
And he has the sign from the bar in his Glass Onion home now.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie might have been in the flashbacks. Did you notice anything about the way Edward Norton was dressed?
I did not. I would be interested to see
in the exact costume and hairstyle of Tom Cruise from the movie Magnolia. Which plays into something later we won't spoil, but it's never brought up.
No,
but once you learn what Edward Norton's secret, one of the secrets is, you're like, oh yeah, they were using that even in that flashback.
Yeah, I like Rian Johnson as a director for reasons, he is clearly cinematically literate, and he will do stuff like that just for fun, just to see if you're paying attention.
Kind of reminds me of Christopher Nolan in that his movies have a certain leaden quality with the camera. I don't understand exactly. Like, there's something kind of like leaden about them.
I don't know that I would say leaden. I would just say traditional.
I don't know. They both like mysteries and twists.
Then there is that. I did like this movie. I think I liked it more than you did. I, however, do not think it's as good as the first one. And the first one was, there's nothing in the trailer for the first movie that would lead you to suspect anything other than like a traditional, straightforward murder mystery, and it turns out to be something different than that. And I think part of the reason I didn't enjoy this as much is because I knew this wasn't going to be a traditional, straightforward murder mystery. I knew that there would be some twist on the format, probably more than one, and that about, say, a half hour into the movie, maybe 35 minutes, it turned out, I think, to be more like 40, we get the first indication that things are not as they seem, and then the second, like right at the halfway point, we'll get another big reveal. And both of those things happened. I did not end up predicting the nature of the second.
Well,
twist.
I didn't end up. The thing that I don't know that you could know, but I also didn't predict was how the character who invited Benoit Blanc came to invite him, and the backstory on this. After the murder mystery game is blown up by Benoit Blanc, a character is actually murdered for real.
Yes.
This becomes a central mystery of the movie of who killed this character and why. I was disappointed in not, I guessed who killed the character, because there was never a red herring. There's no, I never thought in the entire movie they ever gave me a reason to suspect anyone but the person who ended up killing the character.
Mm-hmm. And I can see that. Like you, I did figure out, although I would not have been able to explain exactly why I reached the conclusion I did figure out the ultimate identity of the real killer.
And you figured out some of the means.
Yes.
Which did not jump out to me in the same way it did to you. As
Well, I also had rewatched Knives Out, like literally, I went to see Glass Onion a month ago at the theater during its 1 week run. And right before I went, I watched the first movie just in case there was some little detail in there. And of course there wasn't. The two movies are basically completely disconnected, except for Daniel Craig's character. What I did notice was how Rian Johnson in the first film hid certain things so that you wouldn't pay attention to them exactly. And so I was already thinking in that mode, and so yeah, I did call one of the deaths.
But the major plot is trying to figure out or deals with guilt and collective guilt in the Janelle Monáe story, in that all of the characters had a hand in freezing her out. There was a lawsuit in which she took them to court and everyone lied to side with Edward Norton because he was basically funding all of their ventures, and they were all in both indebted to Edward Norton and maybe have a reason to want to kill him, and maybe have a reason to want to kill Janelle Monáe. Mm-hmm. And she has more than enough reason maybe to want to kill them.
Yeah, and him, obviously.
And him, yeah. There's a collective guilt in not telling the truth of this little community of friends about the Janelle Monáe character.
I'm glad you bring that up, because about that community of friends, I could buy, setting aside Edward Norton and Janelle Monáe for a second, because obviously they're key figures. The invitee, or the person who's doing the inviting, the host of the party, and the guest who no one expected was coming. Set them aside and just focus on the other four major characters. And I'm talking about Catherine Hahn and Lionel Odom Jr. and Dave Bautista and
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. Oh my gosh, how could I forget Kate Hudson? She owns her scenes too. How did I miss her? I'm sorry, Kate. I could see any two of these people being friends. Maybe even any set of three if you stretch it just right. But these four people, like 9-10 years ago, I could see them like all hanging out at the same bar, because it's made very clear in some of the flashback scenes that we get to explain the backstory of this group, that they are losers. They are in a bad place in their life. They are in their 30s and their like late 20s, early 30s, and their life is going nowhere. But now we're 10 years in the future, and they've all achieved some considerable measure of success, some more than others, all in very different fields. But there is no way that Catherine Hahn's character is not hurt by an association with either Dave Bautista or Kate Hudson's characters.
It's very hard to believe that the Janelle Monáe character would be friends with any of them.
After what ended up happening.
Even maybe but once we get to know her.
Yeah.
And maybe also the Leslie Odom Jr. character.
Yeah, he's actually the one I have the least problems with because he is a research scientist for Edward Norton's company.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's clearly got that association, but you get the sense that he's just like, I know what side my bread is buttered on, and I feel like he would end up being he would have gone along with anybody. Ultimately, I think he would have gone along with anybody.
And as such, his character is probably the least fun, maybe, in the whole movie.
I think that's true. I mean,
he doesn't have a whole lot going on.
Even the two major supporting players,
Henwick and the woman who plays Whiskey, they're both quite good at it. Henwick, I thought, was way better in this than The Gray Man, which I think she kind of was bad in.
I've never seen The Gray Man. I have seen both seasons of Iron Fist. You Can Pity Me Later. And she was far and away, and it's not close, she was the best thing about that show. And she was also, when I finally did my catch-up watch on Game of Thrones, I was delighted to see her as one of the Sand Snakes.
I don't remember her.
Yeah, you would if you saw her in costume, I think.
Okay.
She's the Sand Snakes, like the assassins from Dorne, the female assassins who were the daughters.
She was in there.
Yeah, she was one of them.
I didn't remember they were the Sand Snakes.
I am just so glad to see Jessica Henwick getting work.
She was good in this.
She really is. And as good as she is, I think she was actually, like Madeline Klein, who plays Whiskey. I don't know that I've ever seen her in anything before.
She was good, too.
She gave a killer performance. And there's, again, without giving anything away, she has a great back and forth, like a 3-scene relationship arc with Janelle Monáe in the back half of the movie, which is fantastic storytelling.
Janelle Monáe, obviously, maybe not obviously from what we've been saying, as she's the victim of the past injustice. Along with Daniel Craig, she kind of becomes our hero, although we don't know all the elements of the mystery. I won't spoil, but she definitely is. She and Daniel Craig kind of become the heroes of the movie at some point. And I don't know how much more we can really say about it.
Not without going into major spoilers, I think. I will say, so just to sum up from my perspective, cast was great. The setting was fun. I did see a couple of the twists coming.
We forgot one character.
Let's do it.
The guy. There's one thing there where there's a guy on the island who is not part of the game.
You said there were no red herrings. He is a straightforward red herring.
I thought I never suspected that he would play in. Once we're told immediately he won't, and I guess you took it that maybe he would be.
Well, because you just don't drop an extraneous character into a murder mystery. Everybody has a role to play. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say he doesn't.
No.
He is literally just there for the beer and the waves and the sun.
His character's literally a joke that there's a guy with no role to play in the movie.
Yeah.
Which was pretty fresh and funny. I gotta give it to Rian Johnson on that. And he dresses like the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
And pretty much is like the dude, and you feel like he and Edward Norton just get high or something or hang out. He's some kind of hanger-on who's just around. We never find out much about him. Mm-hmm. Edward Norton is like kind of a rich douche who has all of this money and all of these possessions, and yeah.
See, now there is one thing we haven't talked about when it comes to Edward Norton, when it comes to his character. He is, I will say, I did not call the major twist related to his character. Even though it literally was staring us in the face from the first minute he's on screen.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And it's not I mean, it was literally, it was staring us right in the face, and I did not see it. And props to Rian Johnson for that. But Edward Norton, who is playing, again, not Elon Musk, is the kind of obnoxious, You can see why people would be drawn into his orbit, and you can also see why they would drift away from him. Because he is obnoxious beyond belief. He is the guy who, the celebrity name dropper, drops Jared Leto's name, says that he's got a chime on the island that sounds off the hours that was composed by Philip Glass.
Yes.
He hired Gillian Flynn to write his murder mystery weekend because, he's got billions of dollars, and this is the sort of thing you can do when you've got billions of dollars. He is obnoxious as crap.
Every hour there's a voice that says dong, and it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
God bless you, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Are you a Joseph Gordon-Levitt fan?
Mm-hmm.
Never cared for him personally.
Really?
Yeah.
How can you not, though?
I don't know.
I mean, I never watched Third Rock. I'm only familiar with him from his movies, but 10 Things I Hate About You, he makes that movie for me.
No appreciation for it.
Dark Knight Rises, Looper, Brick, of course. He goes way back with Rian Johnson.
Yeah, the Lucas Haas picture.
He was also in the best part of the Sin City sequel. The only good part of the Sin City sequel.
I think the only good part of the Sin City sequel was Ray Liotta.
Okay, two good parts. I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character in that.
The lucky guy.
He deserved to be in a better movie.
Yeah, I wish that was a better movie. I wish the first one was a better movie too, but it was much better than the sequel.
Yeah, the first one was a great movie when I was 20.
I feel the same way about it now that I did then, is that I love the first story with Mickey Rourke and Rutger Hauer, and the rest of the movie's a letdown.
I don't know that I would say that. I like the whole Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba thing. I like the Elijah Wood storyline in that movie.
But the Elijah Wood storyline is from the first story.
In part, it does intersect a couple places.
It's the Rutger Hauer, Mickey Rourke story.
It's also the Bruce Willis story. Or they end up joining up with each other.
Yeah, the Bruce Willis story I found unsavory.
The only part of that movie I didn't really like was the Clive Owen.
That was
Rosario
a real
Dawson.
letdown because I'm such a Benicio del Toro fan. He's my favorite actor, favorite living actor. There's a sadness to me when I see Edward Norton in a movie because I feel like we said with Ethan Hawke, where I said about Ethan Hawke where he makes all these movies I want to see. I wish Edward Norton was making movies I want to see because I think he's such a good actor.
Not a big Death to Smoochie fan?
Never seen it.
Okay. But
that movie's like 20 years old.
Yeah, you're probably fine. You're probably fine. Oh, one other name he drops, actually, and not to be a downer, but Jeremy Renner.
Oh, yes, I hope he does.
I hope he's doing well.
I certainly do. Jeremy Renner has a reputation for being such a weirdo or something. I once briefly met Jeremy Renner and he seemed like the most normal, cool guy. Like I was like, I'd like to hang out with Jeremy Renner.
Who says he's a weirdo?
There are various interviews where Jeremy Renner talks about real estate and stuff, and these guys would make fun of him. And to be fair, when they would quote things he had said, he did sound like an incredible weirdo to me. I can't remember the quote. They're several years old now, but he's given like interviews and things where he comes off as kind of a weirdo. But I seemed like nothing like a weirdo when I briefly talked to him.
And he always struck me as such a normal guy.
That's what he
very
seems like.
Straightforward, yeah. Anyway, so...
Yeah, I really wish him the best.
Yeah, it's, we hope you get better, Jeremy.
What's your favorite Jeremy Renner movie?
Is it cheating if I say The Avengers?
No.
Or Avengers Endgame. I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry.
You know there's a French actor named like Jeremy Renner who looks almost exactly like Jeremy Renner.
I did not know that.
I saw a trailer once for Oliver Assayas' Summer Hours, and there's this actor in it, and I was like, is this Jeremy Renner in a French movie before he's big in America? And then at the end they say the names of the actors, and it was a name almost exactly like Jeremy Renner. And then I looked it up, and there's no relation whatsoever. It's just total coincidence.
I will give a different answer besides just Avengers, because that does feel like a cop-out, but it's not actually a movie.
Avengers 2.
Yes, that's absolutely not what I was going to say. No, he was in an episode of Angel, season 1. He was playing a vampire. He's actually like the major supporting character in the episode. And even in that, that's a very early on in his career. And he's obviously not the star. He's just a featured guest star. But you could already tell there was something special about the guy.
Yeah, I hope he does well here with this injury. I didn't look at. He was plowing his yard, his driveway, or
I
something.
think so. So, on that downer of a note, Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery.
A title that Ryan Johnson apparently hates. And if you watch the movie, it doesn't say that's the title.
Yeah, it just says Glass Onion.
Yes, it does.
Here's a crazy thing. There's nothing wrong with that though. Like what the Thin Man, the Pink Panther. This is a normal thing.
It really is.
For especially for mystery series.
Sure, it totally is. Yeah, I don't know. I can see it both ways, where it's like you title your movie something and they want to change it and that annoys you. I can also see why they wanted to change it.
Yeah.
But the end credits of the movie play the song Glass Onion by the Beatles, and it's the Beatles version. Have you ever heard a Beatles song in a movie? Talk about having all the money. Did Edward Norton pay for this?
Oh.
His character?
No, but Ryan Johnson, Netflix clearly did.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a Beatles song in a movie.
So, I guess before we wrap this up, there is actually one other thing I'm thinking about. Why was this only in theaters for a week?
Not just you. I know other people that went and saw it in that week. This could have made some money.
It
may have.
And it did. I mean, we've got a luxury theater in this town, and it's got, like, adult-only rooms upstairs. You have to be 21 to get into those. But the tickets are obscene. They're like $25 a pop. And then there's dinner on top of that. I took my mother there for her birthday. This was my mother's birthday present. We went to see Glass Onion because she had liked Knives Out so much several years ago when it came out. And it was an expensive evening. Not that you're not worth it, Mom. I love you. But, well, she is. Come on. It's, you gotta...
I'm laughing because she's not worth it.
You gotta treat your mother right. But don't you say my mother's not worth it. How dare you, sir? But it's like that room.
Her birthday should be spent in a dark, dark hole. Not a dark theater.
It was kind of in a dark room, yeah. There is that. They're $25 a ticket. And the room was packed. And it was, granted, it's like 60 seats, but it's packed. And there were, as we went downstairs, leaving our screening, we saw like a whole line, like a dozen teenagers, all checking in for one of the downstairs public screenings of Knives Out. I think Netflix left a lot of theatrical money on the table on this one.
Maybe.
And I mean... I know that's not their model, but maybe for some things like this, it could be, it should be. I think they, I really think they missed a trick.
I don't know what their stock situation was. I do think that other than the Knives Out movie, I don't know of many new properties they've had lately where I've just been like, oh yeah, we got to see that new thing on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, other than the obvious stuff like, Stranger Things and Orange is the New Black, and those only, and I think that's done now, isn't it? But those only come out like once every year to 2 years. And it's like, I don't know.
They're doing a similar... Well, they have a movie right now called The Pale Blue Eye, which by the time this comes out will be probably about to come out on Netflix, but is showing in art house theaters. It's not showing at the luxury theater in our town, which I wish it was.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if we can catch a screening anyway, because that seems like a fun time.
Try.
Anyway, so Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Great cast.
Great cast. Good cast. I mean,
I would say great, especially in this day and age. Fairly well written. Some of the twists are more predictable than others. Love the setting. Love the scenery.
There are more twists we didn't even get into hinting at. Oh, you know what I will say positive too about the movie is it's 2 hours, 20 minutes, and how we talked last week about how some movies don't feel their length. This is a very well-paced movie.
It is. It did not...
It's very watchable.
It feels more like an hour 45, an hour 50, to be honest.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah. For me, it's a pretty positive thumbs up for Glass Onion.
I'm going to give it more of a thumb sideways. It's not a thumbs down. I didn't hate Glass Onion, but I'm not going to rush out and tell anybody you need to see Glass Onion.
I would love to tell people you have to go to the theater and see Glass Onion. But if you don't have Netflix, you're out of luck. So that's unfortunate.
Are we ready to get to my pick for a double feature with Glass Onion?
Let's do it.
Do you want another beer first?
I suppose so.
Let's take a quick break.
Tom thought he could beat the game. Christine played for the prize. Clinton was the master of the game. Lee played because she had to. Philip knew too much about the game. Anthony thought you played for fun. Alice knew the game was for keeps.
What's the game? Well, the idea is to discover everybody's secret. Without peeking, of course, and to prevent the other players from discovering yours. Every day we'll park in a different port where you can discover the proof of one person's secret. I'll announce what secret it is to look for and give you a clue, which will tell you what to do and where to go on shore. Now, if you solve the clue properly, it'll lead you to where the proof is.
My double feature pick is that the first movie would be Glass Onion.
Okay.
And then the second movie would be a movie that Rian Johnson has said is an inspiration for Glass Onion called The Last of Sheila.
Really? That surprises me because these two movies basically have nothing in common.
It's a Herbert Ross film that's 50 years old this year, from 1973. It is a murder mystery about a Hollywood community of friends, in which James Coburn plays a movie producer named Cliff, whose wife Sheila died before at a party that all of these same friends were invited to, and now he invites them all onto a boat named Sheila to go on a week-long murder mystery.
Yeah.
And the cast of this movie is you get Diane Cannon as an agent, you get Richard Benjamin, and gosh, suddenly I can't think of the woman's name who plays his wife. This is kind of her biggest thing. She had a brief...
You're thinking of Joan Hackett.
Joan Hackett as Richard Benjamin's wife, Lee. And Richard Benjamin is a screenwriter who is somewhat struggling but has a script that I think Cliff, the movie producer, maybe has the rights to. And they are both invited. And then Diane Cannon is invited, and also the great James Mason. As a movie director who's fallen on hard times, is now like a commercial director who we meet directing a commercial with children, and one of them pees on his leg while he's on the phone. We also have Raquel Welch as an actress, and her boyfriend, who is a young Ian McShane. Speaking of Game of Thrones cameos, he was in one Game of Thrones.
He was in one Game of Thrones episode. I thought he would be in more, and it killed me when he, died.
You never watched Deadwood yet? You haven't?
I've never seen Deadwood, no.
Deadwood is one of my all-time favorite television programs, and of course he is mostly famous, I think, for that nowadays.
Yeah. No, but it is a great cast. Anytime you get Coburn and Mason together...
I'm a big James Coburn fan. I don't know how Last of Sheila did, but he was never like an A-star, but I just think a great actor who's in a lot of good movies. What happens is he's invited them for a murder mystery game.
Really?
In which they each are given a card, and the card has a certain crime or secret on it. It has a secret. Each person's secret has to be on a different night of the week. They'll pull into port somewhere, and there'll be like a scavenger hunt they have to solve to figure out what the card is and who has it.
Yes.
Or no, he'll tell them what the secret is, and they have to figure out who has the card.
That's right.
That'll be revealed when they solve the mystery of the scavenger hunt. They're also kind of douchebags, like in Glass Onion, but they're very acerbic kind of douchebags with kind of a wicked sense of humor and very cynical Hollywood jaded types.
Not all of them are that bad.
Raquel Welch is not.
Raquel Welch is not.
Maybe Joan Hackett.
Joan Hackett is not. And you can see the excuses that some of the others have, or at least you think you can at first. Like, for example, I can see Diane Cannon's character, being an agent in the business. And
she, in this movie, steals the movie to me. Her character is so fun for her to play, and I don't see many things with Diane Cannon, and she's so good in this movie. It's a character you see a lot of people playing. In fact, Kate Hudson's mom, she's the Kate Hudson character, basically, from Glass Onion more or less, or I feel like if you wanted to make an analog in some way between the two films. Her writing is so good, and her performance is so bubbly. You could see Kate Hudson's mom, Goldie Hawn, in the part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Diane Cannon is really good in this. And Richard Benjamin is basically playing co-writer Anthony Perkins.
Yeah.
And who is the co-writer with Anthony Perkins of the movie?
Stephen frickin' Sondheim.
Yes.
In between redefining the American musical and redefining the American musical again, apparently he found time for this.
Before being in the Glass Onion and dying. But Stephen Sondheim, I guess he and Anthony Perkins would have these game nights. I learned this from Turner Classic Movies, which is the only place I've ever seen this before watching it for this, is that every once in a while Turner Classic Movies trots this movie out. They trotted it out this time before The Glass Onion came out, and my dad DVR'd it. I watched it, or no, I DVR'd it, seeing it on their TV. I was like, oh yeah, let's watch that. I don't think you liked it that much.
That kind of surprises
Me too. I think this is a genius movie that I would recommend to anyone who likes, and I've seen the movie now 3 times. And it gets better every time I see it, because I notice things like the little clues that clue you in to what's going to happen in the movie. This is another one where I won't give away much about the plot because of spoilers.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, it's almost everything in it is a spoiler.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and that's definitely a fair description.
It's a murder mystery to the max.
Yeah,
it plays by the rules. It's meticulous about playing by the rules.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to. This is a straightforward murder mystery. This is not playing with the genre.
No.
There are no little tricks halfway, no Rian Johnson games. This is a genuine... Well, it starts out not as a genuine murder mystery, really.
Yeah, I guess it starts off as a game, but you get to play the game for a while.
Yes.
And then it turns into a real murder mystery.
Yeah. Now, the people who are listening to this will not be able to see this, but Matt will be able to see this, because in the notes I took for this episode, I was actually playing along. I was following with the chart. I've got the characters' names here. I've got the days of the week. I've got the secrets that are on the cards, a couple of which we might be able to talk about, I think, without giving too much away.
Okay.
But the moment that I knew the movie had me, and it did lose me at one point for about 10 minutes, but the moment I knew the movie had me is when I was settling in for a nice long game of let's complete the chart, let's follow the clues, and that's when the murder mystery gets started. And the chart never does get completed.
What I was going to get to is that I learned from Turner Classic Movies is that Stephen Sondheim and Anthony Perkins would have game nights. Mm-hmm. And the director of the film, Herbert Ross, would be invited to these game nights and told them they should make a movie based on it. Mm-hmm. And that's how Stephen Sondheim got into the non-musical game of writing this movie.
And it works out really well.
I think it's a great movie. I would definitely recommend it. But I would say you should watch the Glass Onion first, because the Glass Onion plays with the genre in a way, and the Last of Sheila is such a satisfying, straightforward mystery to me that I think if you watch it first, you'll find yourself chasing the dragon with Glass Onion and being disappointed, rather than seeing a movie and being like, okay, that was a very entertaining, or at least moderately entertaining date movie or something like that. This is a watchable Hollywood picture. I had a good time. Now I'll settle in for this real mystery kind of movie.
Yeah.
What were the clues you wanted to talk about?
Well, so at the beginning of this murder mystery game, everybody gets a card. You've already talked about this. That gives a secret. This is your identity. And most of these, not all of them, there's one in particular, most of them are not criminal. But in the context of 1973, they might be highly embarrassing in a professional environment.
You're right. Some are criminal and some are not.
Most are not. One implies criminality in the past, but...
The first one, we can say the first night is shoplifter.
And that is definitely criminal, but very minor.
Yes.
And I think we can mention the second night, homosexual.
Yeah, which is not a crime.
Which is not a crime. Although in the 70s, there were certain jurisdictions. But no, it's not, And you can cut this out later if you decide this is a spoiler. But as the game goes on, the characters in the movie start to discover that their cards, the identity of the secret on the card does not pertain to them.
But it pertains to another person in the group.
But it does pertain to someone else in the group.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and so they're basically uncovering each other's secrets. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is a really neat twist. And again, I'm kind of like settling in. And then I don't know how specific I can get. Something happens. Someone dies for real.
And then certain characters play detective later. Yes. And the characters who do are deliciously fun as detectives, I think. The solving of the shoplifter one, and watching all the people run around that town, and Diane Cannon get mistaken for a hooker.
And then she walks right into what is clearly a gay bar.
Yeah, a lesbian bar, or a lesbian night at a bar. Yeah, that is really funny little throwaway thing. And the Chanel number 5 later on in the solving. It's really good.
I did.
I would have watched a movie just of them playing the game.
Yeah, like I said, you saw the chart.
Yeah, you were ready to play the game.
I was settling in for the game, and then something happens and somebody dies, and the characters are basically left to have to figure out why this has happened, because clearly someone in their group is actually a murderer. And this is when the movie almost starts to get down to business. And this is also where it almost lost me, because the first thing you would do is to look at the cards. And that's exactly what they do. Most of them, like I said, are either very minor criminal things or just highly embarrassing. But there's one in particular that never gets talked about. especially in the context of the last like 20 to 25 minutes of the movie, where it's made a point that...
Is it perhaps the second worst crime to murder in the movie?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. One, I guess we can say what the card says.
One of the cards says that one of the characters is a child molester.
Which is definitely a crime. And no one seems too shocked by it or taken aback. This is handled in passing, pretty much, by this group of people.
This is, like I said, this is where the movie almost lost me. Because at about an hour into the movie, and this is a very tight 2 hours. Well, I shouldn't say very tight. It's relatively tight. But about an hour into the film is when we get what I thought was going to be the beginning of the second half of the movie, where the characters start to reveal their cards and play detective. Instead, in a scene that lasts about 10 minutes, they actually completely reveal all of the cards. One particular secret gets dropped right on the table, and then 10 minutes after that, we have another death. In a way that, if I had been writing the movie, that would have been the end of the movie. But there's still 40 minutes of runtime to go. And then the movie spends about 10 minutes meandering around, not quite ever dealing with the child molester revelation, and not, I didn't think, really appropriately dealing with the second death before it comes back.
But if the second death had been the end, how unsatisfying would that have been?
You have to understand that I almost turned the movie off between 80 and 90 minutes.
No, I really wanted there to be more, and there was. And in fact, when you have the almost solving of the crime toward the end, I wanted more then, and there was more. To me, it's like one of the most satisfying, and then in the end, when the person finally plays detective and solves everything, there's all this kind of occluded kind of dialogue or something where people speak around what they're trying to say at the very end of the picture. I thought it was so good. The dialogue and the way the characters interact at the end of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. The last 30 minutes I stuck it out. I stuck that 10-minute stretch out, and I'm glad I did. Although I wasn't quite as satisfied by the denouement after the ultimate criminal is revealed.
Oh, I liked it.
The person who has solved the crime gets their life saved in a very sort of Deus Ex Machina way.
Kind of, yeah.
Before we go right into a Bette Midler song.
Yes, that we're told is going to be a Carly Simon song.
And it is not.
No, but it sounds like the kind of song Carly Simon might do, which I thought was funny.
I wish Carly Simon had done it.
True.
It
I
would
love
have been
Carly Simon.
well, and it would have been the nice capper on.
Yeah,
on
but
the-
in a way, because it's them, this would be too much of a spoiler, but there is kind of some fun to it not being Carly Simon, too. But it's Carly Simon-esque.
Yeah, the one thing this movie definitely has going for it is the cast. Not everybody is famous,
No.
but everybody is good in their parts.
Yes.
And-
Certainly Ian McShane probably wouldn't have been big then. And today, what's her name? The lady that plays Lee.
Joan Hackett.
Joan
yeah.
Hackett, she is not big now.
No.
That was kind of her high point.
Yeah, and I think like 10 years after this, she was dead.
Yes.
So there is.
Richard Benjamin's career has not lived in a way that he was huge in the 70s. Mm-hmm. I think he directed a couple of movies. He and his wife, Paula Prentice, I think was his wife.
Okay.
They were a big deal in the 70s.
And you can see why, like...
He was in the Westworld movie, and he and James Brolin
Oh,
and
that's
Joel
right.
Brenner.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are just some people with, like, the manner. They are people of their time.
Yes.
And they can't exist outside that cultural moment, really. Not as a star.
Yeah, Richard Benjamin was a big deal in the 70s, and he's not now.
Yeah.
James Coburn and James Mason have lived on. Raquel Welch has lived on. Ian McShane has lived on.
Yeah, I'm glad you
And
mentioned
Diane
her.
Cannon has lived on.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Raquel Welch because for me, she was the surprise of the movie. She gives a very understated performance and a very good one. And I know, like, if I
She
were a
is good in
cynic,
it.
if I were a cynic and I were a jerk, I'd say, "Well, she's basically just playing herself. She's an actress. She's playing an actress."
Well, this is one of the things about the movie, they say, is that Richard Benjamin is basically playing Anthony Perkins. Diane Cannon is playing an actual agent who was allegedly offered the part and turned it down. Then they went to Diane Cannon, or on some list of people went to Diane Cannon. But Raquel Welch was told she was playing someone else, a version of someone else. And her name in the movie is Alice Wood. And the thing is that she's supposed to be kind of a cheap actress. And the inside joke between Sondheim and Perkins, allegedly, is that they told her she was playing somebody else, but they based the character on her.
And I can
which
absolutely...
seems the kind of cruel thing a character in this movie would do.
Yeah, I think that's right. One of the things I did enjoy about this movie, and I think I did enjoy Glass Onion more.
Whoa.
But, having said that, there is one thing that this movie has all over Glass Onion that Glass Onion can't hope to match, is that I believe that this group of people
Our friends?
are friends, but not, I mean, friends.
Yeah, they use
In
each
quotes. They definitely, I mean, there is some personal affection among some of them. They do kind of like each other, but there is also this constant one-upsmanship. James Coburn spends his entire time in the movie trying to undercut everybody to deliver the perfect slapdown.
There's a meanness to these people.
Yeah.
Do you think a script like this today could be this witty? Did you think that the way the characters talk would go over today?
No, but I miss it.
Yeah.
I miss these old style.
Yes, it's very witty.
Yeah. But having said, I did enjoy Glass Onion more, but I had never even heard of The Last of Sheila.
I came by it by accident. I was seeing a girl, and she knew I liked movies and was a movie person. And she had Turner Classic Movies. This is now like 7 years ago. She had Turner Classic Movies, and she DVR'd like 3 or 4 movies to try to get me to watch one of them and pitch them to me. And because I like James Coburn, I was like, oh yeah, let's watch this one. And I don't know what possessed her to DVR this movie. I'm pretty sure she had never heard of it either. But I was like, damn, that was a good movie.
It was a good choice. It
Yeah,
really was.
she was right. I really liked it.
What else do we have to talk about here?
Your movie.
I would give a thumbs up, mostly up, 80% up to The Last of Sheila. And
I would say the one thing
yeah.
about Last of Sheila is it has that lugubrious 70s photography that, although it tells the story well, like it's like what you show and don't show in the shots is very important in Last of Sheila, and it does a good job of telling you the story. But Glass Onion's a prettier movie.
Glass Onion is prettier, but how much of that is due to advances in camera technology?
Yeah,
though?
we know that now that the film stock of those 70s movies and maybe 80s movies aged faster than any other era. And that's maybe why, like, when we talk about a movie like Singing in the Rain, it looks so great, whereas Last of Sheila looks kind of cruddy in its own way.
It does, but
Not terribly.
I would call the photography workmanlike.
Yeah.
And that's not an insult for a movie like this. It does not draw attention to itself. It shows you everything you need to see.
And you need to see a lot.
But it's all there. And it does a great job of framing it and presenting it so that...
Herbert Ross does a good job.
Yeah, so that the clues that you see, I mean, they're literally right in front of your face, but you're not really paying attention to them.
Oh, I wanted to bring up the movies I didn't choose.
Okay.
I did not choose and thought about choosing Primal Fear.
Okay.
So we could see Edward Norton do a southern accent when he's young in his breakout movie. Maybe his first movie. I believe it was his first movie, which he was nominated for an Oscar for. And in the end decided that Last of Sheila was just too good of a choice, and I really just think nobody's seen this movie, and they should.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to see Last of Sheila. That was another thing I thought you probably hadn't. The other one was Layer Cake, which I didn't end up rewatching before this, but it's just a movie I really like with a younger Daniel Craig and some bright photography for a murderous story.
I give a thumb most of the way up to The Last of Sheila, and I give a thumbs up to your double feature.
Awesome.
I would absolutely, and I like the order too. I think you're right about, you get the twists and the turns out of the way, and then you settle down for something straightforward and satisfying. Mostly satisfying.
What is your pick?
We did not consult each other before we picked movies, and yet somehow we both managed to pick movies that are 50 years old this year.
Yeah, which was really cool.
Which is great.
A drifter came riding out of the West. You know him as Clint Eastwood. The citizens of Largo didn't know him at all.
What did you say your name was again?
I didn't.
Fear was in their greeting. Murder was in their minds.
So my pick is High Plains Drifter. And this is kind of my apology for the first episode.
Because you thought I would like this one more?
No.
Well, you were right.
Well, I'm glad I was right about that. No, this is my apology because Singing in the Rain is such an obvious choice to pair with Babylon. I mean, it's almost too obvious.
Yeah, this time I went with the obvious one, and you went with something more off-field, but...
I was going for more of a thematic thing. I wanted a difference in genre, which this definitely is. I wanted a difference in tone, which this definitely is. It's got a very different pace, it's got a very different feel, but I think if you watch these movies back to back, there are some interesting thematic connections.
There are parallels between the two stories. I gotta give it to you on this one. You did a good job of coming up with a double feature, because if I was to sit through two movies back to back, which I do often, this is a good choice. The High Plains Drifter is a very different movie from Glass Onion, but there are thematic elements that are similar.
Yep.
And High Plains Drifter is a little bit of a mystery.
It is a little bit of a mystery, but there's no actual detective work, and the mystery is gradually solved in a series of conversations that go through the whole film.
And as opposed to with the first two movies where I think spoiling the mystery would ruin the movie for people, I think spoiling the mystery of High Plains Drifter will actually make people who haven't seen it want to see it more.
Yeah, I think you may be right about it, and I'm prepared to talk about
we
this
can.
movie
I
for
think
a
we
while.
can. I think we can go into what happens in High Plains Drifter more.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. So, High Plains Drifter is a 1973 Western / revenge story with a little bit of mystery in it.
And a little supernatural element, perhaps.
Little supernatural element, perhaps. And
Although I'd say definitely.
I would too, but you have to say perhaps, and the perhaps is the key, I think, to what makes this film special. It is not Clint Eastwood is the star.
And
Clint
the
Eastwood
director.
is also the only serious name in the cast.
Yeah, the next biggest person is Jeffrey Lewis.
Yeah, that's right.
And as far as people we would recognize from other things, Verna Bloom is in it, but she's not even a big star. And the man who plays Skinny the bartender in Unforgiven is in it.
Yep. I am going to go into some of the cast because
Good.
you kind of have to. James Coburn, James Mason, they're big names. Everyone who's on the poster in Glass Onion
Is a name.
You know who they are. But other than Clint Eastwood, if you didn't recognize any of these people, it wouldn't be a big shock. They are working actors. They are people, in many cases that Clint Eastwood was associated with through multiple movies. The unifying feature for all of them is they come in, they do their job, they do it well enough to make it interesting, not so broadly that they end up overshadowing the star. Like, they're servicing the story. They're day players, and really good ones.
The cast is good.
Yeah. The backstory, I don't know that we want to go into the backstory. So, High Plains Drifter.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to go into the backstory immediately.
Okay.
I want to start where High Plains Drifter starts, with Clint Eastwood riding into town.
Town Lago.
The town Lago. I'm assuming it was named that because it's by a lake.
Yes, that's what I also
It's very imaginative naming. But the reason I want to start with Clint Eastwood riding into town is because if you have a Clint Eastwood riding into town fetish, High Plains Drifter is the movie for you. He rides into town for the first 7 minutes of the movie.
Yes, he does. People make a big deal online about that his character doesn't speak for the first 7 minutes of the movie, but he pretty much speaks the first time he interacts with another character, because the first 7 minutes of the movie are just him on a horse riding.
Yes, he rides.
It's kind of not really like he's like people are talking to him and he's just being silent or observing things.
Yeah, he rides through the scenery, he rides into the town, he rides through the town, he looks at all of the townspeople, and all of the townspeople look at him. And that is the first 7 minutes of the movie. If you don't like slow movies, High Plains Drifter might not be for you, although it will pick up substantially as it goes in. So pretty much the first thing Clint Eastwood does when he gets into town, he goes into after he rides through the town, which actually has a great benefit to us, because as he's going through the town, not only do you see the people, and you really see the people, you also get a good sense of the layout of the town.
Yes, and the town is
how
important
small
to
it
the
is.
to the movie.
Yeah, and that is all knowledge that will be important later. Even though nothing is obviously happening, you are getting some important information that does play into the climax of the movie, both about the people who live in this place and the place itself. So the first thing he does when he gets into town, he goes to a bar. He goes to the only saloon in town. He has a beer. He has a bottle of whiskey. And then he just takes the bottle of whiskey, goes across the street to the barber shop.
He gets hassled first.
Yeah, for
in
a shave
classic
and a hot
Western
bath.
fashion, the townspeople who are these guys who are in the bar drinking, they give him shit for no reason, pretty much just for being an outsider in the town.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood has been in town.
He immediately gets some static.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood has been in town for 5 minutes. He's talked to maybe 3 people, and he has pissed off the 3 hoods in the bar, who then follow him to the barber shop to try and start something, because they don't know they're in a Clint Eastwood movie. And that ends about like you would expect.
I'm not sure they even pull guns on him before he... maybe one of them does.
Maybe one of them gets a gun
I'm not
off,
even
but
sure.
it does
he
not
just
matter.
murders them all.
Yeah. And normally you would say, like, that's not a big deal. As it turns out, though, it's a very big deal to the townspeople of Lago, because they've got a kind of a dark past. And can we spoil?
I think you can spoil the entire movie of this movie. I think it will only make people be like, that sounds pretty good.
Okay, so
I don't think it ruins the movie at all to spoil every beat of this movie.
I don't think so either, but I am going to condense and kind of combine. Lago, the town, is a mining community, which we don't find out right away in the movie, but it comes out pretty early on. It is a gold mine, and it is the thing that sustains the town. About a year before the events of the movie, a federal marshal named Jim Duncan comes into town. Or he is in town. He is their marshal. And he finds out that the gold mine that sustains the entire town is on federal land, which means the mine will have to be shut down. It is not, the mining company will have to go out of business. The mine is gone. And without the mine, the town is gone. Well, it's not much of a town, but it's what the people of Lago have, and they're willing to fight to preserve it. So they hire 3 people from the mine to deal with the marshal. And by deal with, I mean straight up murder him.
Yes.
In the street by bullwhipping him to death as the townspeople all stand around and look on and do nothing.
And the marshal, we don't see him clearly often, but he's not played by Clint Eastwood, which is key, but he is played by a stunt coordinator of many Clint Eastwood movies, so I wonder if he's Clint Eastwood's stuntman, and I wonder if you're not supposed to kind of think he looks like Clint Eastwood.
He was Clint Eastwood's stuntman.
There you go.
And he also had a few acting credits, a few directing credits, but mostly a stunt guy.
Both before and after this picture was on Clint Eastwood movies, either as actor and director.
Yeah, he gets bullwhipped to death in the street while the townspeople, who of course have engineered the whole thing, although we don't realize that at the time, look on and do nothing about it.
Much like the cast of Glass Onion.
Much like the cast of Glass Onion. Unlike the cast of Glass Onion, though, these people then turn on the three guys that they basically hired to do the murder. They set them up for robbery. They end up getting them sent away to a territorial prison for a year. And that year is about up.
Do we ever find out why?
Do we find out why they set them up?
Yeah, why they cut them loose.
My guess would be just to get the murderers out of the way. I don't know that it's ever made explicit.
No.
But my theory is that the townspeople, having done this terrible thing and having stood by and watched it done, can't quite live with it.
They don't want the guys around.
And so they contrive a way to get rid of them. Basically to set them up as patsies, not for the murder, but for some simple theft. But that year is about up at the time of the movie, and these three guys are on their way back. The town knows this, and so they hired some protection, some hired guns who've basically been cooling their heels in the town for months, just waiting for the day when these three criminals come riding back into town. And as bad luck would have it for the townspeople of Lago, those three hired guns were the three jerks that Clint Eastwood has just killed. They now decide to approach him, seeing how easily he dispatched the people that they've been hiring and paying for all these months. They decide to hire him to protect their town.
This is kind of one of the things that's wacky in the movie. For as quickly as they cut loose the guys who did their dirty work before, and they've just been pretty much probably rolling over and extending hospitality to these new gunmen, now their deal with Clint Eastwood is that he can have anything he wants to save them. And they do plan to murder him, more or less, after he dispatches the criminals.
Yes.
But in the meantime, he can have anything he wants.
Does he take advantage of that?
Oh.
Oh, he uses this as an opportunity to show up the town's racist mayor and the town's racist general store owner, in fact, the same guy, who is, basically insulting these American Indians who've come in just to look for a blanket. Clint Eastwood basically takes all the candy off the general store counter, gives it to the kids, then gives a whole stack of blankets to their grandfather, and basically says, yeah, this is what I need. So it's all okay, right?
Then he makes the bartender at the bar and the bar owner, who is the same character, give booze to everyone.
Yep.
To a large group of people. Then while the people are enjoying the booze, and the people include the sheriff and the mayor, he takes the mayor and sheriff's jobs and gives them to a little person whom everybody makes fun of. Who's his character name? Barnaby or something? Mordecai.
And Mordecai really kind of makes the movie for me.
Yeah, Mordecai becomes Clint Eastwood's assistant, basically.
So, Billy Curtis. Billy Curtis is Mordecai. And Billy Curtis does not often get a chance to act in movies. He had a very long career.
Yes.
But most of the roles that he had, if you look at the list of filmography, you have characters by the name of Midget Judge, Midget Driver, Midget Circus Troupe. You get the idea. He's a little person. And one of the, the only things that I think most people would be familiar with him from these days is actually The Wizard of Oz,
Yes.
which was one of his first films. But here, he actually gets a chance to act. He gets a major role in the movie. And he is delighted at getting all of this power in his hands. He is now sheriff, he is now mayor, he is no longer the smallest person in town, he is the biggest person in town.
And much like a child who gets the job of mayor, his idea is first he's going to declare a holiday.
Yes. And can you blame him? He's clearly been treated like garbage.
Yeah, everybody, he's the town joke.
Yep, only now he's the town sheriff.
And mayor.
And mayor. Which is just Clint Eastwood's way of reminding them who's actually in charge here. This is one of the recurring themes throughout the bulk of the movie. And they actually say this early on, that the townspeople of Lago are good people. That they're God-fearing people. And they keep coming back to these lines over and over.
We're forgetting
and over
one
again.
of the things in the movie that hasn't aged well. There's another thing Clint Eastwood takes is a woman's body.
He defiles.
And it's kind of clear that she enjoys it in the moment, but it's pretty rapey. And it reminds me that I just watched a Western with James Coburn.
It's not pretty.
No. James Coburn did a Western with Carol O'Connor in which he rapes Carol O'Connor's daughter, and she's upset about this, and no one else cares. And when she complains, they tell her to pay attention to what's important in the movie. And then she falls for James Coburn, and I was like, man, these rape plots of these old Westerns have not aged the best.
And this is a bad one. And it does not go away through the movie. It gets elaborated on several times, actually. The woman you're talking about, Callie, is played in another, this is a working actress, Mariana Hill, whom you have seen in something very recently. Because I know you've been watching your way through the original Star Trek series.
Oh, yes.
And she was in the first season episode where they visit the mental illness colony with the guy who's got the hypnosis solution to fixing mental illness problems.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, she's the lieutenant on the Enterprise, the doctor who goes down with Kirk to the facility. So I said, I love this. And the first time I saw this, I was like, you look familiar.
One thing I was thinking this time, because I misremembered her character as being another actress, is the lady that Clint Eastwood was with in the 70s, who's in all the other old Clint Eastwood movies from that same period, who is not in this movie. I forget that actress's name.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where do you place this among Clint Eastwood Westerns?
Well, it's definitely not in the first rank.
That's what I would say.
It's not. If you're looking for essential Clint Eastwood Westerns, the obvious choices are things more along the lines of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Unforgiven.
Those would be my top two.
I would put The Outlaw Josie Wales up there.
I'd put it just below those.
I would put it right at the bottom of the top tier. For me, it's still essential Eastwood. This, however, is somewhere in the middle of the second tier.
But that's a good tier of movie.
It is a good tier of movie.
This is more like in the range of Two Mules for Sister Sarah.
Yes.
Or one that I'm sure annoyed audiences in its day, The Beguiled, but I quite like. Or Hang 'em High.
Oh.
Or Pale Rider. The ones, pretty much all the ones that aren't Outlaw Josie Wales and then aren't Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Unforgiven. I would maybe, it's debatable. I might put for a few dollars more before Outlaw Josie Wales. I think a lot of people would feel differently about that. But those are probably in the same range to me, right below.
I would feel differently about that, but I would still put that in the first tier of Clint Eastwood movies. And I think that's a very defensible. I think your position is a very defensible one.
Same, I would say if you like them the other way around, that's fine too.
Yeah, but this is still kind of in the middle of that second tier of Clint Eastwood movies. Mostly because, again, he's playing his classic character, the man with no name. Oh, literally. Well, he does have a name, doesn't he?
No.
Well, yes.
Well,
if you follow that logic through at the end of the movie.
Maybe.
He maybe has a name.
I guess he does. I guess he does have a name. No, he does, because at the end.
But they never say it.
No, they don't. In fact, he's called the Stranger.
Yes.
At the end of the movie, he does have a name. You're right.
He does have a name at the end of the movie. Anyway, one of the things that this movie stresses early, and it really hits this this buzzer hard several times is that the people of Lago are good people. They're God-fearing people. And they hit that several times to the point where you know it's ironic.
Well, you learn it's ironic fairly quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it's the things you talk about with the marshal are not revealed until fairly far into the movie. Like that's a gradual reveal, but all the details about them killing him and the guys coming back in a year, like that's parceled out in a different order, and you quickly realize no one in the town is too good except for possibly Verna Bloom.
And she is really and Mordecai.
And Mordecai.
They are the only two ones. It is notable, actually, if you watch the scene where Marshal Duncan is being bullwhipped to death. The only person to verbally express anything like this is not something that should be happening, we have to go help that man, is Verna Bloom's character. And the only other person who even seems hesitant about what's going on is Mordecai, who you get the sense he would like to help, but he is hidden away underneath a porch. And what good is he going to be against three guys who are armed with bullwhips?
There's a point where he's haunted in a dream by it as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody else is haunted.
Only Clint Eastwood.
Yes. Which is odd. Who wasn't there?
Who wasn't there? Or was he? But Clint Eastwood, it's like at the beginning of the movie, because this information is parceled out very gradually over the course of about 70 minutes. At the beginning of the movie, all you know for sure the first time you see the death scene with the marshal is that the townspeople have stood by and they are not making a move to intervene. And you can kind of understand that at the beginning of the movie. Like, you can put yourself in that position. If there were someone who were being killed right in front of me, would I go help? A lot of people, I think, would probably, if they were being honest with themselves, would probably have to answer no. And all they're doing is standing silent and bearing witness. So at the beginning, this whole good people, God-fearing people thing, it does kind of work out. But by the end of the movie, you realize that many members of the town, many of the leading men of the town especially, were in on this scheme, that they orchestrated this entire thing.
Yes, it goes beyond staying silent.
Yes, and that even if there were a lot of characters who very clearly didn't have anything to do with the planning of it, but they knew what was going on. This is not a good town. This is hell.
Yes.
Quite literally, this is hell.
Well, it's made more literally hell. I don't know. See, this is one of my pet peeves about the English language, is people saying things are literally something when they're not. But it's not the actual Christian hell.
If you wanted to read this movie as Lago as part of a hell dimension, though,
I guess. I look at it more like it's a hell on earth, figuratively.
Yeah, that is close.
And Eastwood in the third act of this movie makes it look much more like one.
Yeah, that is closer to the truth, I think. Clint Eastwood takes advantage of his power.
Yeah, and pisses everybody off.
He does, and it's interesting. He pretty much specifically targets, for his revenge plots, the people who seem to have been most involved in the marshal's death in a way that he couldn't possibly know, but it comes to feel like he's delivering a karmic retribution to all of these people. He basically commandeers the entire town hotel and kicks everybody out of it. He has a character's barn torn down and the wood repurposed for a project of his own. He orders, in like the capping gesture, he orders the entire town, all of the people in it, to literally paint the town red.
Yes, he orders 200 gallons of red paint. And while they're painting the town red over the word Lago, not very, he doesn't do a good job but he paints the word hell.
Yep.
But he does it like I would, where he starts the H somewhere in the middle of the sign so that the second L on hell barely fits on the sign. It's pretty wacky.
Yep.
But he changes the town name to hell.
Yep. So let's talk about the criminals.
Yeah, at some point they get out of jail. Mm-hmm. And they are Jeffrey Lewis and Skinny from Unforgiven, and then another guy.
Yeah, but Jeffrey Lewis is the one. He's the ringleader.
This was his first movie with Clint Eastwood, and this is to note, this is the second movie Clint Eastwood directed, I believe, but it's the first Western Clint Eastwood directed.
So they get out of jail. They head down toward Lago. They run into someone on the way, one of the townspeople. They basically torture him, kill him. They're clearly not in a forgiving mood. Clint Eastwood basically tortures them in return.
Yes.
He's a one-man army, quite
He's set
literally.
out, like, in the hills and is, like, kind of sniping at them with the rifle.
So, yeah. And then they get to Lago, and in one of
Which
the...
now is hell.
Which now is hell. And now it's literally hell because it's on the sign.
You're right.
You can't argue with me
say
about
it's
that.
It's not literally hell. It is.
But after Clint Eastwood has basically tortured these people, formed them into a makeshift militia, and they're clearly incompetent at their jobs. I mean, they're just not set up to really
this is
fight this
some
guy.
of the fun of the movie is we watch them training for when the people are in town in a Magnificent Seventh Samurai kind of thing, where he's got the townspeople like running drills on trying to shoot these guys off their horses when they're in town, and Mordecai is in charge of calling fire and stuff on this, and they're doing a poor job.
Yeah, they're terrible. Whereas Clint Eastwood basically puts down his beer, and with like 3 bullets, finishes the whole thing. And there is still, like, that is why they're putting up with him through the whole movie, is they think, and, well, not through the whole movie, they do try to kill him very openly at one point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they certainly do.
Yeah, but they have put up with him basically because they are convinced that when he is faced with these 3 guys, that he will fix their problem for them. And right as these guys are about to come into town, after Clint Eastwood has tortured these people, has upended their lives, has called their goodness and their charity into question. The scene with him and the preacher is fantastic, where he basically says, hey, if these are your brothers, you take these people in. And the preacher clearly does not want to do that.
That's right.
He turns around and rides out of town, and he leaves these people to fend for themselves.
And he's set it up so that not only is their town painted like hell, in another joke, he's made it like they're having a party for the criminals when they return, like they're having a welcome home party.
Yep, there's even a banner strung across the main street.
This
Welcome
like,
home, boys. Yep, and they've got a bunch of picnic tables out there, and they've killed a steer. It's very biblical. Of course, that's not how the movie ends. These guys come into town. They overwhelm the defenses very quickly. They basically start their complicated revenge scheme. What they plan to do to the town, as Jeffrey Lewis's character says at one point, is like, I want to take the year of my life that I lost in jail. I want to take that back from this town.
Yeah, this is kind of an uncharacteristically leadershipy. I don't know what you would say. Jeffrey Lewis usually is an assistant or a goofball. In this, he's the leader of the criminals, and he's pretty good.
Does a great
job.
Yeah,
he's pretty darn good.
Does a great job with it. But right as they have taken over the town, gathered everyone in the saloon, and they are about to enact their, to borrow a phrase from Quentin Tarantino, roaring rampage of revenge, Clint Eastwood shows back up and dispatches them one after the other and saves the town. Hooray.
Hooray.
Hooray. And he does it first by bullwhipping somebody to death, and then by hanging the second guy from a bullwhip, and Jeffrey Lewis just gets 3 in the chest. But I love that.
What's your favorite Jeffrey Lewis, Clint Eastwood collaboration?
I don't know.
Mine is, I love Jeffrey Lewis in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Have you seen this movie?
I have not, but I know it by reputation.
Jeffrey Lewis plays a crazy guy in the town of Savannah who has pet bees, and he keeps the bees on strings that fly around him as he goes around town to like the shops and things. He just comes into your restaurant with all of these bees on strings flying around him. Yeah, I think he might also claim to have a poison that will poison all the water if people piss him off too much in it, that he keeps in a vial or something. I mean, you should see it. You love Uga from the University of Georgia.
I have a crush on Uga. I love that little dog.
Jack Thompson, the great Australian actor, he's in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, as a guy who part of his life is he's Uga's keeper. And he just rolls around with Uga in the movie.
Well, see, that just makes me envy Jack Thompson.
So many reasons. Breaker Morant himself.
The end of the movie. Do we want to talk about the final...
Why not?
The final shot, since we've talked about everything else. Clint Eastwood is leaving town. The job is done. Lago is safe. And you would like to think that at least some of the people in Lago have maybe realized the error of their ways. But their town is safe. They're not going to be bothered again. For a while, anyway. As he's leaving town, he goes by Mordecai, who is chiseling a name into a new gravestone. Not a gravestone for one of the people that we've just seen killed, but a gravestone for the marshal.
Yeah, because they've buried him in an unmarked grave. And an unmarked grave, we've heard, can never be at rest.
Yeah, a restless spirit. And so Mordecai says something along the lines of, I never did know your name. And Clint Eastwood said, yeah, you do. And then he just rides off as the camera pans around to reveal the marshal's name on the grave. And then, and I'm not making this up, in the last shot of the movie, Clint Eastwood literally rides into a heat wave and vanishes.
Yes.
So I think the supernatural angle is pretty explicit.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
It makes the movie, because it is such a simple, straightforward movie in a way, with this gradual, slow reveal, and then in the end it has the satisfying payoff that yes, Clint Eastwood was the restless spirit of this marshal that came back and got his revenge and his day in court.
Yeah. So there are several thematic connections between this and Glass Onion. The complicity of silence, especially, of course.
And the conspiracy.
The conspiracy between people who all know the truth but will not, specifically for their profit. Although in this case it's not just for their profit, it's for the existence of their town. I suppose not that excuses what they end up doing.
No.
And allowing to be done. And of course the character who might have a dual identity.
Yeah.
Is that going too far?
No, I think you can hint at that. There is someone in Glass Onion who has a dual identity.
Yeah.
Or kind of does.
Or kind of does, yeah. So that is High Plains Drifter.
Yeah, to which I give both a thumbs up to High Plains Drifter and a thumbs up to your double feature.
Okay. Before we finish out, I do want to, because they never get shouted out in anything, of course, Verna Bloom as like the only sympathetic person in town, maybe other than
One funny thing,
Billy Curtis.
Clint Eastwood famously doesn't do a lot of takes.
Mm-hmm.
What about the shot where Verna Bloom has the knife in the back of that room and she's just totally out of focus? And you're like, maybe one more take here, Clint. He's in focus and she's just like back there with the knife. You're like, this couldn't have actually been the intention of this shot. I think we have a situation here where they were like, yeah, we got it, but she's not in focus.
It's
like,
fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
We got it.
We'll keep going. We'll keep going. A couple of the many professionals in the cast who just never get shouted out. Stefan Girish, who plays the mayor, and John Hillerman, who plays the bootmaker, the guy who gives Clint Eastwood 3 very nice pairs of boots.
Yeah, he has a pretty good part in the movie.
Yeah. Have you seen What's Up, Doc?
Never.
Really? Because
Never.
they're both in that.
Oh, wow.
And I recognized them both from that. That was just a year prior.
That's a kind of a bringing up baby kind of thing, right?
It's a very screwball comedy. They both play employees at the hotel. At some point, I may make What's Up, Doc viewing for you.
Yeah.
Because it's my favorite Barbra Streisand role. And it's a genuinely good screwball comedy in his own right. Mitch Ryan, who plays the mining executive, the guy who's in charge of the mine, who ends up being... He seems like the voice of reason. The first time he shows up, he ends up being one of the bigger creeps in town and gets an end fitting from that. But he was in Dark Shadows.
I've never seen Dark Shadows.
It's a lot to watch because it was a soap opera. I mean,
they had a movie too of it,
and I like the movie.
I've heard it's not bad.
I like the movie as like a gothic, but he was on the original, like the soap opera. Dark Shadows. Walter Barnes, who plays the town sheriff, who was an NFL player in his youth and then segued into a long career like in TV westerns where he's playing the bigger, more heavy-set guy. Did a few other collaborations with Clint Eastwood. Just the whole movie is stacked with good
His
people.
comeuppance when he gets the sheriff job taken from him is particularly satisfying in
It
the movie.
really is.
Because he's kind of sucking up to Clint Eastwood, and then but you know he's a terrible guy, and then when it gets turned around on him by Eastwood with no ceremony whatsoever, you're like, aha, you thought you were gonna skate by, Sheriff.
And it also doesn't help that he's just an incompetent sheriff.
Yes.
He is the sheriff that this town deserves. Not the one they need,
Yeah.
but the one they deserve. And he's got it.
So one thing we didn't do last episode was we should rate the 3 movies, I think, each episode in the order we liked them.
Okay.
So from last episode, how would you rate the 3 movies 1 to 3?
Okay,
1 being
so
the best.
last episode we talked about Babylon, Singing in the Rain, and Maniac. For me, Singing in the Rain is going to be at the top of almost every list. And then it would be Babylon. And then it would be the Riff Tracks version of Maniac.
I knew we would totally disagree on this.
I knew we would too.
I would put Babylon 1, then the Riff Tracks Maniac 2, and then Singing in the Rain 3.
Yeah, but that's just because you hate classics.
Yeah, then what about this episode?
Okay, so this episode, I think we're going to disagree again. I would put Glass Onion as a very narrow first.
Wow.
And I would put High Plains Drifter second and
Wow.
The Last of Sheila third. But I want to be clear when I say that. Like, this is why I hate ranking things. Because putting something 3 out of 3 implies, oh, I just didn't like it. And I did like The Last of Sheila a lot.
Yeah, this is the different one from last time where, and I think we both liked all 3 movies.
Yeah.
But I would rate them once again totally
Well,
differently.
no, we did not like all 3 movies last time.
No, I mean this time.
Oh, this time. Okay.
Yeah, last time we did not.
I was going to say.
This time I would put Last of Sheila at number 1 easily.
Okay.
Then High Plains Drifter number 2 easily. And then Glass Onion number 3 easily. But once again, like, I didn't hate any of the movies.
No, and I would go further. I liked all 3 of the movies.
Yeah, Glass Onion I'd be more on the fence about.
I know.
And then High Plains Drifter honestly doesn't reward rewatching that much to me. It was still entertaining, but it is a slow burn and a simple movie, and maybe the action is not quite as spectacular as in some films.
It is not, but then again, you gotta recalibrate your expectations to like 70s low budget westerns.
I don't know, I think I'd rather rewatch Two Mules for Sister Sarah.
And I can see that.
But-
I think that's a defensible choice.
And I kind of, to me, I was thinking about this as more like Pale Rider, wherein I think I like the story of High Plains Drifter more than the story of Pale Rider, which is kind of a Shane retread, Shane and Hondo. And then the technical aspects and action of Pale Rider, which imitate more explicitly Sergio Leone. I kind of like just looking at some of that cinematography, which the cinematography in High Plains Drifter is another kind of 70s lugubrious thing where sometimes it's really pretty and then sometimes you're like, ooh, this doesn't look that great.
No,
But-
it's a very slow burn. You're right about that.
Yeah. But it's not that long of a movie.
No,
it's our shortest movie of the week.
No, it's an hour 45. And I don't think I gave the order. I, like you, would actually watch Glass Onion first
I agree.
if I were doing this. Because just on the principle just on the network programming principle of we have our sitcoms and then they lead into a drama in the more
I like the
mature
way
hour.
you're thinking about this. I think you're right.
You do Glass Onion first, you have your laughs, you get it out of the way, and then you settle back for a very spare, very adult revenge drama, which also does end up being a bit of a mystery. You can picture all of the characters from Glass Onion that you didn't like as the townspeople,
Yes.
and watch them get exactly what they deserve.
Yeah. Good movies this week.
Good movies this week. Yeah.
We'll see about next time.
We will. We didn't come up with a good closing for last time.
No, did you, in your notes, do you have any ideas?
We just kind of signed off, didn't we? No, I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
I got nothing.
Okay. Hey, Matt, what happens when you fill a glass onion with water and then poke a hole in it?
I don't know.
You get a little leak. Oh, folks, I'm so sorry. That's all I've got. All right, see you next time.
Okay, so I had a couple of more thoughts on Glass Onion that I should have written down and made notes, and one on Last of Sheila. I'll start with Last of Sheila. When I watched it the first time, I was initially disappointed when it became a real murder mystery and was disappointed that the game that you were keeping score of ended. Were you also disappointed that the game was over?
I was very disappointed. I mean, I took the time to make a chart and everything. I was really ready to get into it, and I was already thinking about, okay, they know their own secret, and some of them will come to know each other's, and I wonder if that's going to play into it. Like, there's going to be some sort of big, like, I know your secret, but you don't know mine. I was all ready for that. And then it didn't happen.
It really disappointed me, and it was even more disappointing which character it was that died that kicks off the murder mystery. So the first time I saw it, it did take me a minute to reinvest because I really wanted to play that game, and I wanted to see the whole movie with that actor.
Yeah, definitely one of the more fun performances in the movie.
Okay, now Glass Onion. Mm-hmm. You pointed to a major twist with Edward Norton's character that you said the evidence of was in, or the clues were in plain sight.
The whole time.
I didn't think that was much of a twist. To me, the clues were in such plain sight that I thought they figured into the murder mystery he was building. And then when it's revealed what they actually figure into, I took it as more just a joke than anything else. It didn't just even seem like a twist in the movie to me.
I think I would still classify it as a twist, if only because we're clearly not meant to think it. I mean, Daniel Craig, his character, and I don't think this is a spoiler, kind of guides us away from the possibility very explicitly about halfway through the film that ends up being this big thing.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it was that big of a thing. And I would like to stress once again that Janelle Monáe is very pretty, but also very pretty terrible in this movie. It's a terrible performance. I can't believe you thought she stole the movie.
I do think she stole the movie. Yeah, I did. I thought she was great.
I also thought that the means of murdering the character that makes it a real murder mystery didn't really matter. It could have been accomplished by some other means, even though you did a good job of identifying when you were watching the movie what the means would be, which I did not. But then when it's revealed, you're like, hey, you could just use something else. I think that
especially on like a big island complex like that one.
I think that the reason Knives Out nor Glass Onion are really traditional murder mysteries are because Rian Johnson isn't good enough to write one. He would like to, but he can't pull it off. Which is not terrible because even Quentin Tarantino couldn't pull it off in Hateful Eight.
Well, Hateful Eight was disappointing to me, but, especially because, I paid roadshow prices to go see it. I don't think that Rian Johnson is incapable of writing a good, solid mystery. You've seen Looper.
Yeah, and I think it was okay. I think that every Rian Johnson movie is mediocre, and the best one is Brick because he thought of a new twist, a pretty original twist on the High School movie by making it a retro noir.
Which is a great idea. See, that's the thing. I think he's just doing what he likes to do. He's playing with genres, and that's his field. That's his shtick. I don't think he's incapable of writing a murder mystery, like a good, solid, straightforward murder mystery. I just don't think he wants to.
I think he's incapable. I also think when I said he reminds me of Christopher Nolan, he also reminds me of Wes Anderson. He's kind of like if Wes Anderson and Christopher Nolan merged. But I would probably take Wes Anderson out of the three. I did like Brick, but I would prefer it reminds you of two other people who made high school movies that put a twist on the high school movie, and that's Wes Anderson with Rushmore and doing kind of a French New Wave Francois Truffaut, Antoine Doinel movie, but doing it in the fashion of a Scorsese movie, but with more of a comedy, which I think is a brilliant movie. And then also, right after that, in the very next year, Sofia Coppola's best movie, I think, is The Virgin Suicides.
Okay.
which is basically an eerie version of a Scorsese movie set in high school, a literary adaptation.
I've never seen The Virgin Suicide.
Oh, it's quite good. I was thinking about it today. It came to my mind because I was listening to a thing where people were talking about Kathleen Turner, and she's the girl's mom in it. Okay, I have a question for you. At what point did Edward Norton send Jonelle Monáe a box? And why isn't he more surprised to see her on the island? He's the least surprised person to see her. It seems like he should be far, far more surprised.
I think he is surprised, but you bring up a great point, and it is definitely a weak point in the story structure.
Like, why? When did he send this box?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my major complaint.
I guess the answer is, if he didn't send her the box, the movie couldn't happen.
That's true. Or, if he didn't send her the box, it might be... See, maybe what we find out about him later... See, I thought of a thing, the big reveal about him, I didn't think was totally true. And in fact, if he might have been wise to send her a box, and it might point to a little wisdom he's not given credit for at some point in the picture.
Oh, I see what you're doing. In other words, he's... Yeah.
That could be true.
It could be.
I'm just not a big Ryan Johnson man. I still stand by that it's a thumb sideways watchable movie, but I just pretty much wanted to complain about Ryan Johnson.
It's okay. I am a Ryan Johnson fan, although I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive him for Last Jedi, which is the one film of his that I just can't watch again.
What about Brothers Bloom?
I've never actually seen Brothers Bloom.
That's his most Wes Anderson-y movie.
Yeah, I've picked up on that from the clips I've seen.
Yeah, it's quite...
But I've seen Brick, I've seen Looper, I've seen Knives Out, and obviously now I've seen Glass Onion, so I feel like I've watched a representative sample of his filmography. And I like the whole playing with genre tropes and creating something new that way. That's, yeah, I enjoy that sort of thing. I think probably more than you do.
Yeah, I think both Knives Out and Glass Onion, I really felt were kind of let down movies in a way. Although Glass Onion I had very tempered expectations for based on having seen Knives Out.
Whereas for me, Knives Out was actually my second favorite movie of 2019. No kidding. The only one that I would put above it was Under the Silver Lake.
Oh yes, which you still haven't seen.
Which I absolutely love, but Under the Silver Lake is a really divisive, like it's a 5-star or no star movie. You were either gonna, I've never seen anybody give it like, that was 3 stars, it was fine. It's either, this is one of the most brilliant, mind-bending, weird things ever, or I hated every minute of it. It built to nothing. It was nothing. But Knives Out is the brief return of like the mid-budget adult movie. The thing that used to be the pinnacle of Hollywood's success. The movie that you can make for a reasonable amount of money and that does really, really good numbers at the box office. And I guess that's one of the reasons when we talked about this last, why I was so disappointed that Glass Onion was only in theaters for a week. I feel like, number one, just from a business sense, I feel like Netflix left a lot of money on the table. But more than that, I feel like they kind of let down the theater goer. Glass Onion's not as successful as Knives Out, but it could easily have been another one of those mid-budget adult movies that pull a lot of people in to see it. I really want to see more of that stuff, and I'm disappointed that it didn't happen.
Well, our next movie is going to be one of almost the exact same thing, except for less popular, I think, which is that we're going to watch Pale Blue Eye, which is also in theaters for a week from Netflix.
Matt, I told you I did not want to see Avatar 2.
My favorite
Nothing
movie
with
of
blue in it.
2019 was a Netflix movie that was in theaters, like, only briefly, and I saw in the theater, was The Irishman.
Yeah. Still haven't seen it.
Much like Under the Silver Lake for me.
Well, that's okay. I guess we still got some homework to do.
Yes.
Oh, so by the Pale Blue Eye, you're not making like some sidewise reference to Avatar 2, are you?
Or to the Velvet Underground, although we'll see if that ends up being my double feature, something revolving around the Velvet or Lou Reed.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next time, midnight.